Hey guys, so I want to do a video today about fasting and my experience with it and how it's helped. And Get into the science a little bit, not too much, but I will get into some studies with you as well. I don't want to bore you to death. And how to break a fast. So if you guys go back through my previous videos, you'll see that I deal with a whole host of gut issues. Okay, so I have methanogen overgrowth, I have candida, I have leaky gut, I have terrible gastritis I've had for years. I also deal with erosive esophagitis as well. And I've always had a love-hate relationship when it comes to fasting. I think there could be a lot of pros to fasting. I think there could also be some cons to fasting. But it's taken me quite a while to build up to the point where I'm at now, where I'm doing a lot of intermittent fasting and some longer term fasts. Now, I will preface this video by saying that when it comes to fasting, I think it's something that everybody needs to build up to. So I know everybody is onto this whole ancestral biohacking type lifestyle now, but it doesn't really make sense for somebody, say somebody who eats bagels and waffles for breakfast every morning and works at a computer desk for 8 hours a day for 30 years to go straight into fasting. It's going to be very taxing on your body. And one of the cons to fasting is it can be very taxing on your adrenals and cortisol levels, especially if you're going for those longer term fasts, like 24 hours or longer. However, what could also be taxing on your adrenals and cortisol levels is if you're constantly eating, right? So when you're eating and you have leaky gut, you're going to get these histamine type reactions when that food breaks through the gaps in your intestinal lining, entering into your bloodstream. You're going to have a rise in histamine. You're going to have an inflammatory reaction. Your cortisol is going to go way up, and you're going to get a whole host of symptoms, neurological, inflammatory symptoms, all sorts of gastric distress. So that could also be very problematic. So you have to find an in between, right? And you have to let your body adapt to fasting. Now, for myself, I could tell you for myself that fasting has really helped bring down my inflammation. It's really helped a lot with gastritis. There's one study, which I'm going to link down below, show that fasting is very beneficial for gastritis and with inflammatory conditions, pain conditions especially. Another study showed that 24-hour fast could help rebuild intestinal stem cells, which is a study done in mice, but I think it could also be relevant for humans. And it also increased beneficial strains of bacteria like Akkermansia and decreased pathogenic overgrowth of bacteria like Salmonella. So it could be very beneficial in that respect. Another thing, if you're dealing with SIBO and you're constantly eating, is that you're never giving your migraine motor complex a rest. So your migraine motor complex is this sort of cyclic electrical waves that pass through your colon and your small intestine. And it helps sweep out bacteria out of, especially out of your small intestine. And if it's helping sweep out bacteria, it's going to also help sweep out this sort of overgrowth that's constantly building up in your small intestine. And if you're constantly eating, you're disrupting that. I always tell people to wait at least 5-6 hours between meals, because if you have SIBO, it's kind of like your migraine motor complex, your motility becomes paralyzed, and it takes a lot longer to digest food. So if you're someone who deals with like bloating and acid reflux, you want to wait quite a bit longer between meals, especially before you go to bed. You don't want to eat for at least 5-6 hours before you go to bed. And that's really going to help you digest your food and bring down the inflammation and deal with that acid reflux and bloating quite a bit. So, um, so there are many benefits to fasting. Now, I think a lot of people could overdo it. I think that, when people have these sort of regimens of fasting and they're fasting every single day for long periods of time, they're doing constantly these weekly 3-day fast and dry fasting and so on and so forth. it could really tax your adrenals. And I've seen this happen many times. People start getting like, um, terrible anxiety, and they can't sleep, and they lose their periods. And there could be a lot of problems that go along with that. So I think if you are really into sort of ancestral living, it doesn't really make sense to do that. It's not like it's not like our ancestors had these regimented periods of fasting, right? They ate when they could, you know. But I think it could be quite inflammatory and bad for us to be eating all the time. I think it's just not a good way about fixing specific gut issues. Now, how to break a fast. Now, breaking a fast is another story. Now, I know a lot of people say, like on the GAPS diet, we'll break a fast with bone broth or meat stock. However, I'm not such a big fan. With my protocol, I don't bring in meat stock and bone broth until the later stages of that protocol, whereas a GAPS diet will bring that in right from the beginning. The problem is when you bring in from the beginning is that if you have severe leaky gut like I do, and not a lot of people have it that bad, is that you're going to get crazy histamine reactions no matter how short you cook your meat stock. If you freeze it right away, no matter how you prepare it, it's going to create an abundance of histamine producing bacteria that you're going to have to deal with, and is going to cause a crazy mast cell response and an inflammation and make the problem worse. So I'm not a believer in just dealing with the pushing through the histamine reactions. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't seem to help many people. So I would not recommend that. I would recommend breaking a fast with the lean protein. I break my fast with lean chicken. I boil it, which helps to reduce the histamine producing bacteria as well. And that's backed by a study. And that's how I start. A lot of people have a problem with rebounding, and really, like, when they go back into refeeding, will go into crazy amounts of food and they'll just gorge on all this crap. And that's the absolute last thing that you want to do. Not only will it completely negate all the beneficial fasting that you've done, but it could even make you worse, right? Because you need to build back up those enzymes, especially after doing long-term fasts. So eating that lean boiled chicken to start, waiting 5-6 hours before you eat again. And then you could start introducing a little bit of fat. I'm not a fan of carbs, but if you're in that position where you could introduce carbs, then you could try going for that. But it needs to be something that's rather methodical, and you need to plan out and organize. You can't just go break that fast, going willy-nilly into it and hoping for the best. So really that's where I'm at with my regimen right now. I'm doing 16, 18-hour fast pretty much every day, which has really helped heal my inflammation, bring down my gastritis, and really help with my SIBO, because the foundation for SIBO and a lot of this pathogenic bacteria is inflammation, right? And if you're bringing down the inflammation, it's going to help in all those areas. So I'm also doing 24-hour fast, usually once or twice a week as well on top of that, which I've really had to build up to. So really that's it, guys. You can let me know your thoughts. I always appreciate leaving, if you guys leave comments, if you like the video and subscribe, that always helps. So I'm not talking to myself, and I'll get back at you soon. Thanks so much.